Ladies and gentlemen, life is suffering. Chaos is inevitable. The world will test you time and time again with setbacks, failures, and unexpected blows. But here's the question. Will you be the person who crumbles under pressure, or will you be the one who stands tall, unshaken, resolute? Training your mind to stay calm in any situation isn't just a luxury, it's a necessity. Because if you let chaos dictate your emotions, you'll become a puppet to circumstance, a mere reaction to the unpredictable nature of life. But if you master your mind, if you cultivate discipline over your own thoughts and emotions, then no storm, no hardship, no moment of crisis will have the power to break you. Tonight, we will explore what it truly means to gain control over yourself, to remain composed when the world around you spirals into madness, because strength isn't found in panic. It's found in clarity. It's found in the courage to face life as it is, not as we wish it to be. So let's begin. Let's talk about how to train the mind to stay calm no matter what. Life is inherently chaotic, unpredictable, and filled with uncertainties. The moment you step out into the world, you are confronted with situations that challenge your sense of stability. People betray you, circumstances shift without warning, and the very ground you stand on can crumble in an instant. Most individuals react to this unpredictability with fear, anxiety, and frustration. They attempt to control every aspect of their lives, clinging to the illusion that stability is something that can be permanently secured. But the truth is far more unsettling. Chaos is not an anomaly. It is the default state of existence. The human mind in its rawest form is wired for survival, not peace. It sees unpredictability as a threat and responds with stress, triggering fight or flight instincts. This is a biological mechanism that once kept our ancestors alive in a world filled with predators. But today, in a modern society where physical threats are minimal, this same response gets activated in situations where it is neither necessary nor useful. A delayed flight, a harsh comment from a colleague, an unexpected bill, these minor disruptions set off the same neurological alarms that were once reserved for life or death situations. The inability to distinguish between real danger and mere inconvenience leaves people in a constant state of anxiety, unable to maintain control over their own emotional landscape. To navigate life effectively, you must first accept that chaos is not something to be avoided, but something to be embraced. The moment you stop seeing disorder as an enemy and start seeing it as an integral part of existence, you strip it of its power to disrupt your inner state. Yeah, most people live in resistance to reality, trying desperately to force order onto a world that does not conform to their expectations. But this resistance only amplifies suffering. The more you fight against uncertainty, the more fragile you become. Instead of fearing unpredictability, you must learn to adapt, to move fluidly through life without being paralyzed by the inevitable disruptions that arise. The key to mastering this mindset lies in shifting your perspective on control. Control is an illusion, at least in the way most people understand it. You cannot control the external world. You cannot control how others behave, how circumstances unfold, or when unexpected obstacles appear in your path. But what you can control and what truly matters is your response. Instead of pouring energy into resisting chaos, redirect it towards strengthening your ability to remain composed in its presence. This shift in focus is not about passivity or resignation, but about reclaiming power over the only domain that is truly yours, your own mind. One of the most effective ways to cultivate this mindset is to expose yourself to controlled forms of chaos deliberately. This is why training both physically and mentally is essential. When you engage in activities that push you beyond your comfort zone, whether it's intense physical exercise, public speaking, or intellectual challenges, you train your nervous system to function under pressure. By repeatedly putting yourself in controlled, stressful situations, you teach your brain that discomfort is not a signal to panic, but an opportunity to grow. Over time, this desensitization allows you to remain calm even when real-world challenges arise unexpectedly. People who master this approach do not crumble when faced with difficulties. They do not react impulsively or allow their emotions to dictate their actions. Instead, they observe the chaos around them with a level head, assessing situations objectively rather than through the lens of fear. This does not mean they are emotionless or indifferent. It means they have trained themselves to maintain clarity even in the face of uncertainty. To embrace chaos effectively, you must also develop an internal belief system that supports resilience. Many people fall into the trap of victimhood, seeing every obstacle as an unfair burden rather than an opportunity to strengthen themselves. This mindset weakens them, making them susceptible to emotional instability whenever things do not go their way. In contrast, those who accept chaos as a natural part of life develop a sense of ownership over their experiences. They stop expecting the world to be fair, predictable, and instead focus on adapting to whatever comes their way. This shift in thinking does not happen overnight. It requires consistent effort, conscious awareness, and a willingness to reframe how you interpret the world. Every situation, no matter how challenging, presents an opportunity to practice this mindset. When an unexpected problem arises, rather than reacting with frustration or despair, take a step back and observe. Recognize that in resisting the situation, you are only amplifying your own suffering. Ask yourself, how can I navigate this moment with composure? What is within my control right now? This simple act of self-inquiry disrupts automatic emotional reactions and allows you to respond with intention rather than impulse. Ultimately, training your mind to embrace chaos is a process of rewiring your relationship with discomfort. Instead of fearing the unknown, you learn to approach it with curiosity. Instead of seeking constant stability, you develop the ability to remain grounded even when the world around you is anything but. Breathing is one of the most fundamental and automatic processes of human existence, yet it is also one of the most powerful tools available for regulating the mind. The way you breathe directly influences your nervous system, your emotional state, and your ability to maintain composure in high-pressure situations. Most people go through life completely unaware of their breathing patterns, allowing their body to dictate their breath based on external stimuli. When stress arises, their breath becomes shallow, rapid, and erratic, mirroring the chaos of their emotions. This uncontrolled response reinforces anxiety and tension, creating a feedback loop that makes it nearly impossible to regain control over their mind. Understanding the connection between breath and mind is crucial for anyone seeking to master their internal state. The autonomic nervous system operates on two primary modes, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. The sympathetic system is responsible for the fight or flight response, activating during moments of perceived danger or stress. It increases heart rate, tightens muscles, and floods the body with adrenaline. The parasympathetic system, on the other hand, governs rest and relaxation, slowing the heart rate, relaxing muscles, and promoting a state of calm. The breath acts as a bridge between these two systems, allowing direct access to the body's internal state. By consciously controlling your breathing, you can shift from a reactive, anxious state to a controlled, composed one. When panic sets in, the breath naturally becomes fast and irregular, signaling to the brain that something is wrong. Physiological reaction amplifies stress, making it difficult to think clearly or act rationally. However, by slowing down the breath and making it deeper, the nervous system receives a different signal, one that tells the brain that everything is under control. This simple act of deliberate breathing can disrupt the cycle of stress and anxiety, restoring clarity and focus. Elite performers across various disciplines understand the importance of breath control. Navy SEAL, high-level athletes, and seasoned public speakers all use controlled breathing techniques to maintain composure under pressure. One of the most widely used methods is box breathing, a technique that involves inhaling for 4 counts, holding for 4 counts, exhaling for 4 counts, and holding again for 4 counts, before repeating the cycle. So this practice regulates the nervous system, stabilizes the heart rate, and anchors the mind in the present moment. Another effective technique is diaphragmatic breathing, where the breath is drawn deep into the belly rather than remaining shallow in the chest. This type of breathing engages the parasympathetic nervous system, promoting relaxation and reducing stress. Beyond its physiological effects, breath control also serves as a mental anchor. The mind is constantly bombarded with distractions, emotions, and external pressures. In moments of uncertainty or difficulty, it is easy to become overwhelmed by racing thoughts and reactive impulses. Focusing on the breath creates a point of stability amidst mental chaos. It provides a tangible, immediate action that redirects attention away from panic and toward a state of control. And meditation and mindfulness practices have long emphasized the power of breath. Awareness as a means of cultivating inner stability. Ancient traditions understood that breath and consciousness are intimately linked, and that mastery over one leads to mastery over the other. When the breath is shallow and erratic, the mind follows suit, becoming restless and unfocused. When the breath is deep and steady, the mind mirrors this rhythm, fostering a sense of calm and clarity. Training the breath is not something that happens passively. It requires consistent practice and conscious effort. Incorporating structured breathing exercises into daily routines builds the ability to remain composed in stressful situations. Controlled breathing should not be reserved for moments of crisis alone. It should become a habitual practice, strengthening the nervous system and conditioning the mind to respond to challenges with composure rather than reactivity. The benefits of breath control extend beyond handling stress. It enhances cognitive function, improves decision making, and increases overall resilience. When the breath is steady, the mind operates more efficiently, processing information with greater clarity. This is particularly crucial in high-stakes situations where the ability to think rationally and act decisively determines the outcome. Those who master their breath do not allow external chaos to dictate their internal state. They remain grounded, unshaken by external circumstances, and capable of responding to life's challenges with deliberate intention. Many people underestimate the power of something as simple as breathing, dismissing it as an automatic function that requires no attention. Yet the ability to control breath is a defining factor between those who remain calm under pressure and those who succumb to stress. It is a tool that is always available, requiring no external resources, no special training, only awareness and practice. Emotions are a natural and unavoidable part of human existence. They arise spontaneously, often without warning, and can shape the way people perceive and respond to the world. Fear, anger, frustration, and anxiety are powerful forces that, when left unchecked, can dictate actions and cloud judgment. Most people allow their emotions to control them, reacting impulsively to situations without considering the long-term consequences of their behavior. They get caught in cycles of reactivity, driven by fleeting feelings, rather than deliberate choices. This lack of control makes them vulnerable to external circumstances, leaving them at the mercy of whatever emotions happen to surface at any given moment. The ability to detach from emotional reactions is not about suppressing or ignoring emotions. It is about recognizing them for what they are: temporary states of mind that do not have to dictate actions. Observing emotions without becoming entangled in them requires a shift in perspective. Instead of identifying with every feeling that arises, it is necessary to create distance, to step back and examine emotions objectively. This process allows for greater self-awareness and prevents impulsive decisions that are driven by temporary states of mind. One of the most effective ways to achieve emotional detachment is through mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of bringing full awareness to the present moment, observing thoughts and feelings without judgment. When an emotion arises, rather than immediately reacting, a mindful approach involves acknowledging it, naming it, and allowing it to pass without resistance. This practice trains the mind to become an observer rather than a participant in emotional turmoil. Instead of saying, I am angry, a mindful approach shifts the perspective to, I am experiencing anger. This subtle difference creates a gap between the emotion and the self, preventing it from taking over and dictating actions. Another powerful strategy for detaching from emotional reactions is cognitive reappraisal. This involves consciously reframing the way a situation is perceived. Instead of interpreting an event as a personal attack or a catastrophic failure, it can be seen as a challenge, a lesson, or an opportunity for growth. The brain assigns meaning to experiences based on past conditioning, but these interpretations are not fixed. By changing the way a situation is framed, the emotional response to it can also be altered. Someone who receives criticism at work might instinctively feel defensive or hurt, but through cognitive reappraisal, they can view the criticism as constructive feedback that can help them improve. This shift in perspective reduces emotional distress and allows for a more rational response. Physical awareness also plays a crucial role in managing emotional reactions. Emotions are not just mental states, they manifest in the body as well. Anxiety tightens the chest, anger creates tension in the muscles, and fear can cause shallow breathing. Becoming aware of these physical sensations provides another point of detachment. Instead of getting lost in the emotion itself, focusing on the physical response allows for a more grounded approach. Techniques such as deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, and body scanning help regulate these physiological responses, preventing emotions from escalating out of control. Developing emotional resilience requires intentional practice. Exposure therapy is one method that strengthens the ability to detach from emotional reactions. This involves deliberately placing oneself in situations that trigger strong emotion and practicing controlled response. Public speaking, engaging in difficult conversations, or exposing oneself to discomfort in controlled settings builds tolerance to emotional stress. Over time, the brain adapts, learning that these situations are not threats but challenges that can be navigated with composure. One of the biggest obstacles to emotional detachment is the belief that emotions are inherently truthful and must be acted upon immediately. This misconception leads people to justify impulsive behavior, believing that their emotions provide an accurate representation of reality. However, emotions are often misleading. They are influenced by past experiences, cognitive biases, and even physiological states such as hunger or fatigue. A person who is exhausted and stressed might interpret a neutral comment as an attack, reacting defensively without considering the actual intent behind the words. Recognizing that emotions are not always reliable indicators of reality allows for greater control over responses. Another important aspect of detaching from emotions is developing a strong sense of self-awareness. This involves identifying emotional triggers and understanding personal patterns of reactivity. Certain situations, words, or behaviors from others may consistently provoke strong emotional responses. Just by recognizing these triggers in advance, it becomes easier to anticipate emotional reactions and prepare a more measured response. Keeping a journal to track emotional patterns, reflecting on past situations, and analyzing personal tendencies helps build this awareness over time. People who master the ability to detach from emotional reactions do not become cold or indifferent. They remain fully engaged with life, experiencing emotions without being ruled by them. They maintain control over their actions, responding thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. Their sense of stability is not dependent on external circumstances, but on their ability to manage their internal state. The way a person perceives control over their life determines their emotional stability, resilience, and ability to navigate challenges. People with an external locus of control believe that their fate is dictated by external forces, luck, circumstances, other people, or societal systems. When things go wrong, they blame factors outside themselves, seeing life as something that happens to them rather than something they actively shape. This mindset creates a sense of powerlessness, leading to frustration, anxiety, and emotional instability. Since they feel at the mercy of unpredictable forces, they struggle to remain calm in difficult situations, reacting emotionally rather than responding with clarity. In contrast, those with a strong internal locus of control understand that while they cannot dictate every event that occurs, they are fully responsible for how they respond. They do not waste energy lamenting unfairness, nor do they wait for external circumstances to improve before taking action. Instead, they focus on what they can control: their mindset, their effort, their decisions, and their reactions. This approach creates a deep sense of personal agency, allowing them to maintain composure even when facing adversity. Rather than seeing themselves as victims of circumstance, they view themselves as the architects of their own lives. A strong internal locus of control does not mean denying the existence of external challenges. People face real hardships, economic difficulties, societal barriers, unexpected tragedies, but the key difference is how they interpret these challenges. Those with an external locus of control see obstacles as insurmountable, believing that their success or happiness is dependent on external permission. Those with an internal locus of control acknowledge obstacles, but refuse to let them dictate their mindset or actions. They recognize that while they may not have control over every event, they always have control over their response. One of the most powerful shifts in thinking occurs when a person stops asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and instead asks, "What can I do about this?" The first question places them in a passive position, reinforcing the belief that they are helpless. The second question reclaims authority over the situation, focusing on action rather than victimhood. This shift in perspective alters the way stress is processed. Challenges are no longer seen as punishments or injustices, but as opportunities for growth, learning, and self-mastery. Training the mind to develop an internal locus of control requires breaking the habit of blaming external factors for emotional states. It is easy to say, "They made me angry," or "this situation ruined my mood," but in reality, emotions are self-generated. No one has the power to control another person's emotions unless that power is given to them. The ability to remain calm in any situation comes from recognizing that emotional responses are a choice. The moment this realization is internalized, a sense of control is restored. Instead of reacting impulsively to circumstances, a person with an internal locus of control deliberately chooses how to think, feel, and act. Self-discipline is a crucial component of this mindset. People who lack an internal locus of control often struggle with self-regulation, relying on external motivation to dictate their actions. They wait until they feel inspired to take action, which makes them inconsistent and emotionally reactive. Those with an internal locus of control develop discipline regardless of how they feel in the moment. They train themselves to act according to principles rather than emotions. This approach creates stability, as their actions are not dictated by fluctuating moods or external validation. Taking responsibility for one's emotions and actions does not mean denying difficulties or pretending that everything is within direct control. It means refusing to let external events dictate inner peace. When faced with a stressful situation, a person with an external locus of control becomes consumed by frustration, feeling powerless against circumstances. A person with an internal locus of control immediately shifts focus to what can be done. They do not waste energy on resentment or complaining because they understand that these reactions do not change reality, they only drain personal strength. A practical way to strengthen an internal locus of control is through self-reflection and intentional habit building. Keeping a journal to track thought patterns and emotional responses helps identify moments where responsibility is being shifted onto external factors. Replacing reactive language with proactive language reinforces the habit of control. Instead of saying, I had no choice, a shift is made to, I chose to respond this way. Instead of saying, this situation made me feel bad, the focus becomes, I allowed this situation to affect my emotions. These small shifts in language train the mind to take ownership of internal states, reinforcing emotional stability. Surrounding oneself with people who embody this mindset further strengthens it. Those who consistently blame external circumstances for their problems create an environment of negativity and helplessness. Being around individuals who take responsibility for their actions, who focus on solutions rather than complaints, cultivates the same attitude. The mind is shaped by the influences it is exposed to, and intentionally choosing to engage with perspectives that reinforce self-mastery accelerates the development of an internal locus of control. Building this mindset is not an overnight transformation. It requires daily practice, constant self-awareness, and a willingness to challenge deeply ingrained habits of thought. The reward, however, is immeasurable. It creates resilience in the face of difficulty, clarity in moments of uncertainty, and a deep sense of personal power. Discipline is the foundation of mental strength. It is what separates those who crumble under pressure from those who remain calm, focused, and in control. Many people believe that emotional stability is something they either have or don't have, as if it is a fixed trait rather than a skill that can be developed. The truth is that remaining calm in any situation is a direct result of training the mind through discipline. Without discipline, emotions take control, dictating actions and reactions based on impulse rather than intention. Discipline, however, creates a structure that allows for rational decision-making, regardless of how chaotic the external world may be. A disciplined mind is not easily swayed by external circumstances. It does not react impulsively to every inconvenience, nor does it allow fleeting emotions to dictate long-term decisions. Instead, it remains steady, able to assess situations objectively and respond in a manner that aligns with long-term goals rather than immediate gratification. This level of control is not achieved passively. It requires consistent practice, self-awareness, and an unwavering commitment to self-mastery. One of the most important aspects of discipline is the ability to delay gratification. The undisciplined mind seeks immediate relief from discomfort, whether through distraction, avoidance, or emotional outbursts. It prioritizes short-term pleasure over long-term stability, making decisions that provide temporary satisfaction but ultimately lead to instability. A disciplined mind, however, understands that true control comes from the ability to endure discomfort without being controlled by it. It is willing to sit with difficult emotions, process them rationally, and act in a way that aligns with greater goals rather than momentary relief. This ability to delay gratification extends to emotional reactions. When faced with stress, frustration, or anger, the undisciplined mind reacts instantly, often in ways that escalate the situation. It lashes out, complains, or retreats into self-pity, reinforcing a cycle of emotional volatility. A disciplined mind, on the other hand, recognizes the impulse to react but does not act on it immediately. It takes a step back, evaluates the situation, and chooses a response that serves a higher purpose. This habit, when developed over time, creates a level of emotional resilience that allows for calmness even in the most challenging situations. Training discipline begins with small, intentional actions. Many people believe that mental strength is built in extreme moments of hardship, but the truth is that it is forged in everyday decisions. Waking up at a consistent time, following through on commitments, maintaining a structured routine, these small acts of discipline condition the mind to remain in control. When these habits are consistently reinforced, they create a foundation of self-mastery that carries over into more challenging situations. A person who has trained themselves to follow through on their daily commitments will find it much easier to maintain composure in moments of crisis because their mind is already accustomed to operating with control rather than impulse. rather than impulse. Another crucial element of discipline is the ability to regulate thought patterns. The mind naturally gravitates toward negativity, fear, and doubt when left unchecked. Without discipline, these thought patterns spiral out of control, creating unnecessary stress and emotional instability. A disciplined mind, however, actively monitors its own thoughts, identifying and redirecting negative patterns before they take hold. It does not allow itself to be consumed by irrational fears or self-destructive thinking. Instead, it challenges these thoughts, replaces them with productive perspectives, and maintains focus on what can be controlled rather than what cannot. One of the most effective ways to develop this level of discipline is through controlled exposure to stress. Many people try to avoid difficult situations, believing that this will preserve their peace of mind. However, avoidance only reinforces weakness, making it harder to remain calm when real challenges arise. Instead, exposing oneself to controlled adversity through physical training, challenging tasks, or deliberate discomfort builds mental toughness. This process strengthens the mind's ability to remain composed under pressure as it becomes accustomed to operating with control even in difficult circumstances. Self-discipline also requires accountability. A person who is not accountable to themselves or others will find it easy to justify their lack of control. They will excuse emotional outbursts, rationalize poor decisions, and convince themselves that their reactions are unavoidable. True discipline, however, demands honesty. It requires a willingness to acknowledge personal weaknesses and take responsibility for improving them. Whether through journaling, mentorship, or structured self-reflection, holding oneself accountable ensures that discipline is maintained consistently rather than selectively. Another key aspect of discipline is consistency. Many people expect immediate results and become discouraged when progress is not instant. However, the strongest minds are built through sustained effort over time. The ability to remain calm in any situation is not developed overnight. It is the result of repeated practice, daily habits, and a long-term commitment to self-mastery. This is why discipline must become a lifestyle rather than a temporary effort. It must be integrated into daily routines, reinforced through deliberate action and prioritized above fleeting emotion. It does not avoid challenges, but rather embraces them as opportunities for growth. It remains steady in the face of adversity, not because it is unaffected by emotions, but because it has trained itself to act in alignment with principles rather than impulses. The environment in which a person immerses themselves plays a crucial role in shaping their mindset, emotional stability, and ability to remain calm in any situation. Many people underestimate the extent to which external influences, people, habits, and surroundings affect their thoughts, behaviors, and emotional responses. They assume that their internal state is purely a product of their own mind, failing to recognize how much it is shaped by the environment they allow themselves to exist in. Those who wish to train their minds for resilience and composure must first examine and consciously shape the external conditions that influence them daily. The people one surrounds themselves with have a direct impact on emotional regulation. If a person is constantly exposed to individuals who react impulsively, complain about circumstances, or spread negativity, it is nearly impossible to remain unaffected. Human beings naturally absorb the energy and behavioral patterns of those around them, whether they realize it or not. If the dominant influence in someone's life consists of people who are emotionally unstable, easily angered, or reactive, then that person will begin to mirror those traits, even subconsciously. On the other hand, surrounding oneself with disciplined, calm, and rational individuals fosters the same qualities. The mind takes cues from its environment, and by consciously choosing to engage with people who exemplify self-control, it becomes easier to internalize those same traits. Beyond people, habits and daily routines serve as the framework for mental stability. Many believe that emotional control is something to be practiced only in moments of crisis, but in reality it is built through the habits that are cultivated in ordinary moments. If someone's daily routine is chaotic, disorganized, and filled with distractions, their mind will reflect that same instability. A structured routine, however, conditions the mind for discipline, for waking up at a consistent time, setting aside moments for reflection, maintaining physical activity, and limiting exposure to unnecessary stressors all contribute to a stable mental state. These habits train the brain to operate with control, making it easier to stay composed in difficult situations. Digital and informational environments are just as influential as physical surroundings. The media people consume, the conversations they engage in, and the narratives they allow into their minds all contribute to their overall emotional state. Constant exposure to negativity, news cycles filled with fear, social media arguments, or entertainment that glorifies chaos conditions the brain to exist in a heightened state of stress. Many people do not realize how much external information shapes their emotional landscape. By filtering the information they consume and prioritizing content that reinforces clarity, discipline, and resilience, they can actively shape their mental environment to support emotional stability. One of the most powerful ways to reinforce composure is through intentional exposure to controlled adversity. Many people structure their environments in a way that avoids discomfort at all costs, believing that this will lead to a more peaceful life. However, avoiding difficulty does not create strength. It only increases vulnerability. When someone is never exposed to challenge, even the smallest inconvenience can become overwhelming. The key to mental resilience is not eliminating stress, but training the mind to handle it effectively. This is achieved through regular exposure to controlled stress, physical training, intellectual challenges, and situations that require patience. By placing oneself in slightly uncomfortable situations on a regular basis, the mind learns to remain composed rather than react impulsively. Maintaining a clean and organized physical environment also plays a role in emotional regulation. A cluttered, chaotic space contributes to mental disarray, making it more difficult to remain calm and focused. The state of external surroundings often reflects the state of the mind. By cultivating an environment that is orderly and structured, a person reinforces the same qualities internally. Small habits such as keeping a workspace clean, minimizing distractions, and designing a space that encourages focus all contribute to a sense of control and stability. Another key aspect of environmental influence is the way in which energy is managed throughout the day. Many people fall into patterns of overcommitting, constantly reacting to demands, and allowing external pressures to dictate their energy levels. This leads to exhaustion, which in turn makes emotional control far more difficult. A mind that is depleted cannot remain calm under pressure because it does not have the necessary reserves of strength. By managing time effectively, setting boundaries, and ensuring that energy is spent deliberately rather than reactively, a person ensures that they have the capacity to handle challenges with clarity. The environment extends beyond just external factors. It also includes internal dialogue. The way a person speaks to themselves, the narratives they reinforce in their own mind, and the language they use to describe situations all influence their ability to remain composed. If someone constantly tells themselves they are overwhelmed, stressed, or unable to handle difficulty, their brain will believe it and respond accordingly. However, by deliberately shaping self-talk, replacing defeatist language with words that reinforce strength and composure, a person can rewire their mind to default to stability rather than chaos. Ultimately, training the mind to stay calm in any situation is not simply about reacting differently in moments of stress. It is about proactively shaping the external and internal environment to support emotional resilience. By surrounding oneself with the right influences, cultivating habits that reinforce discipline, and managing energy with intention, the foundation for composure is built long before challenges arise.